How many people have heard of social choice theory before or can guess what it means? Please go ahead, let me know.
I have studied it in game theory, like how people decide upon some common, like in case of voting, we have social choice theory where people commonly decide who will be the I mean their representative or so.
Nice. It is basically a way in which we aggregate some preferences or opinion, right? This is the main question of social choice theory, how to aggregate opinion or preferences of different people to come up with a decision. This is something which we do all the time, right? This is continuously happening. You obviously do it in voting, as Udit said, but you also do it. You might want to say, oh, should we have next semester online or not? And we can have a vote. Or I ask you or I ask you a question and then you give the answer, and then sometimes I just want to decide on the answer, not on the basis of math, but what do you guys think? Like, should we have a quiz next week? Right? All these kind of things are basically how to aggregate. If four people say that we want to have a quiz, six people say I don't want to have a quiz, should we have a quiz? Two people have valid reason, or okay, I shouldn't say valid reason, but a very important reason why they don't want the quiz to happen. How much weightage should I give it to that? So ultimately, the point is, in many situations, we have people expressing their opinion. Let's say we have people P1, P2, P3, P5, and they have some opinion X1, X2 up to X5, and our task is to take these X1, X2 up to X5 as input and come up with some kind of a decision on that, which is going to be the output of this. In our case, we are going to make our life simple as always. We will say that our opinions are 0, 1 or -1, 1, and then even the kind of decision which we want to make is also a binary decision. So that can also be modeled as 0, 1 or -1. Let's fix the problem for us. Let's say we just want to figure out the voting, right? There are 10 people, there are two candidates, let's say, or yeah. So two candidate voting. This is what we want to figure. There are, let's say, 10 people. Their votes would be 0, 1, 1, 0, so on, and want to decide whether candidate 0 wins or candidate 1. Right? How is this related to a Boolean function? It's not very difficult, right? Why in this case, why is this related to Boolean function?
Because the result is either a 0 or a 1.
Right. Or other way to say it is that the voting rule which I'm talking about or deciding rule is basically a Boolean. In this particular case, when there are 10 people, a voting rule is basically a function which takes 10 inputs, binary Boolean inputs, and decide whether to pick minus, right? What I'm trying to emphasize is that Boolean functions come up very naturally in this set. And then we want to decide, oh, is the voting rule fair? Is this a good voting rule? Is this a bad voting rule? And intrinsically, we want to study Boolean functions and specifically some properties of Boolean. And what kind of properties of Boolean function we will study? That is something which we're going to see very soon. But it should be clear to you that there is a field where Boolean functions and their properties come out very, very naturally. At least for a two-candidate voting rule, you clearly see that our task is to design a nice Boolean function. Now, yeah, what do I mean by nice? That again needs a definition. Do you know of good voting rules?
Majority.
Right. That is all obvious, right? That is the most democratic rule you can come up with, and that function we have also studied. Let me just say that the most natural choice is majority. And today we will see various justifications of why intuitively majority seems like a nice way to decide things. Right? This we will see today some justification of that. But obviously that is not the only rule. What are the other rules? What kind of voting rules have you seen in real life?
This would be symmetric.
Sorry?
Uh,
No. Not you're not asking about the property of voting rules. At this point, I'm just asking what kind of Boolean functions could be voting rules, which you might have
Dictatorship.
seen in real life. Sorry?
Dictatorship.
Okay. Okay, Udit, that's not a good sign for you. The second thing after majority which comes to your mind is dictatorship. But yeah, obviously, we can have a dictatorship, right? And we have a voting rule like that. When we say that, is there going to be a quiz next week? It is basically a dictatorship by me. Whatever my vote is, that is taken. That decides whether there is a quiz or not. Right?
We
So
can have and also.
sorry.
We can have and also.
Right. So dictatorship, which is not very democratic, but obviously possible, and in many cases that happens. Another option is and. This is when can this be useful? So whoever listed
In the quiz only, saying that in the quiz this can be used.
sorry.
This can be used in quizzes like if
Okay.
there has to be a quiz next week or not. If all of us are
Mhm.
denying, then there will be no. And if even one of us is agreeing that there will be.
Okay, yeah, that could happen, but you wish ultimately it is a dictatorship whether the quiz happens next week or not. But but yeah, and could be useful whenever you want some drastic measure, or let's say, okay, yeah. So one possible way would be that I can make a rule for myself that if everyone says there is no quiz there should not be a quiz next week, then I will change. Right? I have some date in mind, and I will only change it if everyone says this date is not good for them. That could be a possibility. You could have, let's say, there is not a discussion about death penalty or something, right? So we can have a rule which says that, okay, if every member in the jury says death penalty, then we will give death penalty to the criminal. By the way, how many people know what jury is? Raise your hands. Okay. Very few people watch American movies. Yeah, so here in India, things are decided by a judge, but in many places there is concept of jury where there are around 10, 15 people chosen from citizens, and the proceedings happen in front of the judge, so that the judge makes sure that the proceedings are fair or all, but the final decision is taken by a jury. That means some randomly selected 15 people decide whether a person is going to be hanged, is the person guilty, and things. Right, and in then that case, if you want to give a very strict punishment, you could have a rule that if everyone says death penalty, then only we will have a death penalty. So end is also useful. Obviously, none of them is the voting rule, which we use to select the prime minister. Correct? Yes, no.
Yes.
What kind of rule do we use to select majority? Sorry, select prime minister.
2/3 of votes, I think.
No. Don't want to give you civic lessons, but you don't need 2/3, right, to become a prime minister. You need more than half people to support you in parliament. It's basically okay in terms of Boolean function. That's what I want to emphasize. What is it in terms of like a Boolean function? The kind of Boolean function which we have studied.
I think
like
it's more
majority
like
of the
a composition of majority.
Very good. Who? Someone else wanted to say something?
I think it's like majority of the majority.
Yeah, it's very similar to majority composed with majority, right? It's two-level majority. Obviously, the number of inputs for the inner majority are not the same in this case. There are different districts and so on. So different MPs are selected by different number of inputs, but approximately this is the Indian voting rule, let's say. And then these are not all. One of the few which are also useful are called weighted majority. In this case, some people might have their vote might have a higher weight. We can say that if our inputs are x1 to xn, we are going to assign weights to them, calculate this quantity, and then how do we decide what is the answer? Is it 1 or -1? How do we decide?
Positive or negative?
Yes. So that's called the sign function. We just use the sign of this quantity. And here we have assigned different weights to different votes. Another possibility is tribes. Have I discussed what tribes function is?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then tell me, what is it?
It is or composed with and.
Very nice. This is or composed with and. And can you think of a situation where this might be useful? This is kind of saying that, you know, one particular group of voters, if they unanimously say, we want this to happen, then it will happen. Right? What is or composed with and? It is or and then and of some inputs. When will this happen? It will happen if one of the AND gates comes out to be 1. That means this one unanimously votes for 1 or for some measure to be seen. Can you think of a practical situation where this is useful?
If a company wants to manufacture something, it could ask like, so these are like company is the client, so which will calculate the OR, and it would contact the manufacturers. So it would contact one which agrees to manufacture all the parts for it. So I mean that could be an OR of AND.
Sorry. So what are the inputs here? What will be X1? Let's say X11 or something. That will be whether that particular company manufactures
That particular product, yes.
Okay, okay. So then the company can find a manufacturer if there is a manufacturer which makes it.
Yes, it wants all to be manufactured by one company. I mean, at one place.
No. Remember. So yeah, so you don't want to make it a that kind of a voting rule because the the output is just 1 or 0. It is not selecting one of the gates of the right.
Yeah, so it would at my I mean it would produce that thing if some manufacturer agrees.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, it won't.
So company will be successful, let's say, in producing some particular thing if all the components are produced by a single. Right.
Yes.
Right. In terms of voting rule, you can think of, let's say, you want to hire a faculty. The faculty might be in machine learning or theoretical computer science or systems. And then our rule could be that, oh, if every faculty or every student in machine learning says this faculty should be hired, then we will hire. At least one of the field should convincingly say that we want to hire them. If any of the field says that, then we will hire that person. Again, I'm not justifying all these, but there are many situations where not just majority, but different voting rules could be used. This is what I want to emphasize. But in all this, few properties which we want to have, right? So I want to start talking about properties which might be useful for a voting. Can you think of something? I think already Udit mentioned one. What kind of properties would you want with the voting rule? Obviously, some kind of mathematical notion of fairness and things like that. So how would you put them? How would you put that condition on a mathematical Boolean?
Influence is non-zero for each variable.
Okay, that's nice. But then there's a small problem with that you can just create a very small influence for one variable and then have very high influence for some other variable.
Influence is the same for each variable.
Okay, yeah, that is good. But ultimately,
By the way, is that the same as saying that the function is symmetric?
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't see. I can't come up with a counterexample now in real time, but I kind of feel that that doesn't feel.
Yeah, okay, I'll try it out.
It seems much weaker than being seen. Right. So, if the function was non-Boolean, then it is easy to construct functions whose influence is all equal, right? Because you can just create your f at s's in certain way so that the summations are equal. But you see what I mean? Okay. What I want to say is that you define your
Yes.
influence like this. Okay. Now you can define the influence of any function whose range is also real, right? Not just Boolean, right? And if this is the case, then you can obviously pick up f at s's in certain way so that influence size are all equal, but individual f at s's at every level are not. That seems like you can easily do, but you're not sure when you make those changes whether you will get a Boolean function or something which is actually going into other values of real numbers. So I don't have a proof or a counter example that in all same influences mean that the function is symmetric, but it might be false. I don't know. I don't see a proof of it for sure. Okay, this could be a good question to discuss on the phone.
So there was a question in quiz like the smallest positive influence for a Boolean function. How could we do that?
Just the two things can differ on just one input, right? One input pair. So that one input pair will be counted twice, right? In the formula. So it would be 2 by 2 to the power n. You think about it, and you can construct a function where only at one place, only at one pair, the function value changes. Everywhere else, it is the same. Okay, and you can easily construct such a function, and then it will be counted twice. If it is a question, please post it on forum. We
Yeah,
will be
yeah,
able to
yeah.
clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, all these are pointing towards one thing, that we want our function to be, or voting rule to be symmetric. This is a good property to have, but a very strong property. Many of the functions are not symmetric, so we might be asking too much from our voting rule. There are simplifications. In the assignment, you will learn about transitive symmetry. Here, the idea is that if you have read about probability, you know that total independence and pairwise independence are different. It is some sort of similar idea here. In the case of symmetric, we are saying that everyone has the same influence, it has the same role. If we take any permutation, the function will remain the same. In the case of transitive symmetric, we have a slightly weaker condition that the role of any two variables can be interchanged. And it turns out to be a weaker definition than symmetric. You will see this in the assignment. I wouldn't talk about it much, probably in some assignments or something, it will show up anyway in quizzes. But yeah, there are ways in which you can relax the condition of function being symmetric and still have some concept of fairness. Right? So this we are all doing because we want things to be fair. And other way, obviously, one which was suggested just now, that inf I is same for all. Okay, by the way, yeah, so now we know the answer, right? So there are transitive symmetric functions, and in a transitive symmetric function, influence of I will be equal to influence of j. That means it will be the same for all I. So a transitive symmetric function will definitely have same influence for all, right? So this is saying that influence I is same for all I is not as strong as function being symmetric. But this is a very, very natural property, right? You won't be worried about it, that and some kind of symmetric property should be there with our rule. Anything else? Let me say that the voting rule should definitely be unanimous. What would that mean? Any guesses?
If all the inputs are same, then the result should be that input itself,
Correct.
that value.
Right. That makes sense for a voting rule, right? Another thing would be odd. So this is fairness. The first one was being fair with respect to the voters. Let me just write it.
So for unanimous, for other inputs, what will it will be 1 or -1?
No. There is no other condition. This is the only condition for a function being unanimous. At other places, it can be anything.
It can be anything. Yeah.
It can be. A function is called unanimous if it satisfies two things. F of 1, 1, 1, 1 should be 1. F of -1, -1, -1 should be -1. At other places, it could be. I don't know.
Okay.
These are so there are a lot of functions here unanimous. There are a lot of functions just symmetric. Similarly, odd. What is the definition of function being odd? This you
F
should
of
know.
-x is minus f of x.
Very good. F of x is equal to minus of f of x. this is in some sense fairness with respect to candidates, right? You are saying that if certain section of people voted for Obama or I don't know, Donald Trump, if the same section of people voted for Obama, then Obama should have been something like that. Right? So there are two people. If some profile, let's us select A, then the exactly opposite profile, or if that profile, everyone voted for B, then we should have selected. So this also is very, very natural, right? And another rule which might be helpful, which again we have seen, is called, right? What is monotone? What is monotone?
If y is less than x coordinate wise, then f of y is less than f of x.
Right. Another intuitive way would be to say that if more people voted for A in Y than X, and if f of x is equal to A, this should imply that f of y should be, should also be. Right? If more people are in favor of A, then definitely we have selected A for some profile, for some input. If more people start favoring A, then we should definitely select it. Right? Any comments on the validity of these rules? If you think that they sound too much, or they are not natural or anything. Okay. Good. These are the rules. Now, tell me, what about majority? Is the majority satisfies all these rules?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Majority, all four are okay. What about N? Is N symmetric? Come on, this we can do quickly.
It's not odd.
Right. So it is symmetric, it is unanimous, but it is not odd. It is definitely no. Can you give me an example of a function which is which is symmetric and odd, but not monotone? Give me an example of any function, any symmetric function which is not monotone. Huh? Sorry?
I realized.
So give me a function which is not which is symmetric but not monotone.
Parity.
Yeah, good. Whenever someone says function not being monotone, parity should come to your mind, right? Is parity symmetric? Obviously. Is it unanimous? Sorry?
It's not
No,
unanimous.
I mean on the
Yeah, correct. So if n is odd, then it is, correct? Is it odd?
Mm,
Sorry.
No, I guess.
I think if n is odd, then it will be, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it monotone? No.
No.
Right. So we have discussed many functions. You can check how many of these properties do they satisfy. And again, this is kind of an indication why we like majority so much. Because it satisfies most of our notions of what a good voting rule should be. Don't worry, I will show you counter evidence also. In the next class, I will show you why majority is not a good function. But for today, we would just want to say that majority is great. Actually, in social choice theory, there are two theorems. One theorem says that majority is the best function. There is another theorem which says dictatorship is the best function. So depending on the kind of assumptions you make about the voting rule, you can get very, very different outcomes, right? But it's a very, very nice mathematics, and that's why we are looking. But yeah, again, there are 4 properties I talked about, very, very natural, which a voting rule should satisfy. And we saw that majority satisfies everything. And all the other functions I have talked to you about, if you look at them, you will see that they will not satisfy one of these. So you can try to check. Okay. Anyway, let me try to justify in one more way why majority is such a good voting. For that, I will define a quantity which is called Wx, or I should say Wx. What is this quantity? This is the number of inputs or I should say number of eyes in X such that the output agrees with ith voters. So number of voters whose preference agrees with the output of our voting. Is the definition of WXF clear? Remember, it depends on 2 things. It depends on the input as well as function. It is not just for a function. You take a function, fix an input, I will get Wx, F. How many voters agree with the output at a particular X for the output for the voting rule F? Is this clear? So can you think of a voting rule or F where this thing is very, very bad?
Dictator. Sorry, it will be low.
Yeah, dictator or function, right? So a function is symmetric, but still, if I talk about W of this is going to be just 1, right? What is unanimous saying? If you understand this definition, just to make sure that you understand this definition, I'm asking these questions. What is unanimous saying?
W of 111F or minus 1F is N.
Correct. Right. So this quantity is clear. Okay. Now, intuitively, what property should be of the good voting rule? How should we select a voting rule using this WXF? any kind of heuristic. Again, I'm not going to ask a mathematical proof.
Expected value of WXF over X should be as high as possible.
Correct. Very good. So one way to select a function, a good voting rule would be to maximize expectation value of WXF. Again, we remember if I don't write anything below the expectation, that means my distribution is
Uniform
uniform
over
distribution.
inputs.
Very good. It is the uniform distribution over all. Right? Let's try to find the function which maximizes this. Right? To do this, what I will do is define this quantity which is the indicator variable can you guess what is this indicator variable?
Whether f of x equals to xi.
Whether f of x is equal to x. Correct. And then what do I know? I know that wx comma f is equal to summation over I wx. Now, can I write this quantity wx comma f comma I in terms of fx and xi? We have done this kind of a trick before also.
F of x
1 plus f of x into xi by 2.
Right. So your first intuition should be, oh, it should be related to fx times xi. But then since we're in the -1 comma 1 domain, if fx is equal to xi, then this quantity will be 1. And this will be 0 if fx is equal to minus xi. Only these two are the possibilities. Sorry, it will be -1. And now we know the standard way in which we convert 1 comma -1 into 0 comma 1. That will give us W xfi as it is already mentioned 1 plus fx xi by 2. Knowing this, what will be the formula for wx comma f? N plus do you agree with this?
Yes.
Right? Okay, great. Our task was to calculate expectation value of wx. This will become n by 2 plus 1 by 2 expectation value of fx times sorry. Okay, now do we know something about this quantity?
So in the previous page, we could have f of x plus xi by 2 whole square also, right?
F of x
Plus xi, f of x plus xi by 2 whole square.
x plus xi by 2 whole square. That is correct. Yeah. So that is same as this, right? When you open it up, you just have to use the fact that fx square is equal to 1 and xi square is equal to 1. Right?
Oh,
That will give you the exact same.
Okay, yeah, it will be
You
the
can-
exact same. Yeah,
Yeah, it will, you analyze it, it will be the same. Not a bit. Yeah. What do we know about this?
FFI.
Very good. Yes. This gives us a formula for this quantity. Remember that sometimes I like to write this quantity just as f. Right? That's just a simplification of notation. But more importantly, actually, we saw that this f at I was the influence in a particular case. What was that case?
Monotone.
Yes. So we can actually say that the quantity which we are interested in is equal to n by 2 plus half times influence of f when f is low. Okay, another way in which influence is helpful, uh, a function, a voting rule being monotone is a very, very obvious assumption to make. And if we assume that our voting rule is monotone, then this expectation of this nice quantity, which we want to maximize, comes out to be related to the influence. But anyway, let's talk about what we wanted to do, right? So what we wanted to show was that majority is awesome. Let's finish that. Okay, yeah. So I know that this is the quantity which I want to maximize. Obviously, n by 2 and the half constants are not very important. I want to maximize this quantity. But since fx is a plus minus 1 variable, I would say that this is less than expectation of mod of summation. Uh, do you agree with this?
Yes.
Right? So this is, again, if there are any doubts, the point is that since fx is plus minus 1, the best thing you could do is actually add everything in positive. If you choose the correct sign of summation xi, then you will get the maximum output from this expression. This is utilizing the fact that fx is element of minus 1. This is based on this simple. Okay, great. When will equality hold?
When all xi are of the same sign and their sign is opposite to f of x.
Which
It's the same as f of x.
whose sign is same as f of x?
When all the xi are of the same sign and their sign is also the same of f of x.
Is that true? Should all xi's should they have the same size? Can it happen? That do we have the choice of making all xi to be of the same size, same sign? We don't, right? This is an
Yes.
expectation over x, right? So there will be x's for which xi's do not have the same sign. The only power we have is to choose f. We can't manipulate x's. We know that we have to sum up over all possible x's, right? Remember, when I don't write expectation, it means x is uniformly picked from minus 1.
Choose f to be the sign of a summation xi.
Very good. Equality holds if and only if fx is equal to sign of summation.
So it's a majority, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Very good. This is saying, another way to say it is F is majority. Uh, the theorem, or loosely, since I'm loosely speaking, the fact which we have proven is that if we want the voting rule to maximize agreements, then it should be, go ahead, it should be
Majority.
majority, right? Another way in which we have seen that majority is a good choice for a voting. I guess enough about majority. I have been praising majority for last close to 50-60 minutes. Uh, the next thing which we want to study is a very important result in social choice theory. If you talk to people who work in social choice theory, we have one person already, Suprava, and other person might join. And if you talk to them, the most important result in social choice is something called Arrow's theorem. We will prove it in the next class. I will talk about what it is in the next class, but I just want to tell you that it's one of the most important results, and it is a very nice Fourier analytic. And we are going to see the Fourier analytic. But to do that Fourier analytic proof, we have to talk about stability of a function. What is the stability of a function? Did we talk about it today?
Does it have to do something with changing each bit with probability p?
Very nice. Yeah. Intuitively, we want to say that a function will have high stability if its f is robust when uh, bits are changed with small p, the function doesn't change. Or the probability of function changing when we change every bit with probability p is small. Okay, this uh, this statement is not very precise. It's just for intuition, so don't read too much into it. But the idea, again, what I want to emphasize is you are changing every bit independently with probability p, and you want to say that with high probability the function, if that probability is high, the function is very stable. If the probability is low, then function is less stable. This is the intuition which we want to follow. We are going to make a mathematical definition out of this intuition. Are there any questions about the intuition? Okay, everyone is fine with this intuition, right? This is what we want to capture. For doing this, we will define what we call row correlated variables. Fix an x from our favorite domain, a random variable y is going to be rho correlated if yi is equal to xi with probability 1 plus rho by 2, and if we know that yi is equal to minus of xi with probability 1 minus. Okay, so this is very similar to what we were doing. We pick an x and then we define a random variable y. How are we defining the random variable y? It switches its value at ith position independently with probability 1 plus rho by 2. Okay, and most important thing, all this is happening independently. Why have I written y in bold? Because y is a random variable here. What about x? Is x a random variable here?
No, because you're fixing.
Yes. These things should be clear to you. I fix an x, that means x is going to be a string between -1 and 1. It is not a random variable. On the other hand, y is a random variable whose range is -1, 1 to the power n. Correct? So what is the probability that y is equal to x?
One plus rho by 2 to the power n.
Very good. The way I have defined it, this should be clear to you that probability, my random variable y is equal to x is equal to 1 plus rho by 2 whole to the power. Okay. Is this definition of rho correlated variables clear? Questions? I'm
So,
not-
sir,
Mhm.
are we defining another uniform distribution over -1, 1 power n?
We will. That will be the next step. Good. Because if remember, you want to talk about stability. So what you want to do is you want to pick an x uniformly and then pick a y according to this rho correlation, right? Make sense? Very good. So this is the next distribution I'm going to define. What is this distribution? In this case, I am going to have both x comma y as random variables, where first you pick x uniformly from -1, 1 to the power n, then pick y as a rho correlated string. Okay. Now, what is the probability of a pair, a particular pair, let's say x0, y0. There are two inputs x0, y0. What is the probability that I pick that particular pair under this distribution? I will not write this distribution a lot of times. It will be too much for me. But now remember, whenever I skip the subscript, I'm not going to talk about the uniform distribution, but this particular distribution, where I pick x uniformly and then pick y as a rho correlated string. Under this distribution, what is the probability of picking a particular x comma y? X0,
Half.
step one.
1 by
Like,
How can it
1
be
by 2.
half? How can it be half? The probability should sum up to 1. How many such pairs are there? 1 by 2 to the power n. 2 to the power 2n,
yes.
right? So 1 by 2 is just wrong.
So 1 by 2 to the power n multiplied by 1 plus delta by 1 plus rho by 2 to the power n minus the Hamming distance between x0, x0 and y0, and 1 minus delta by 2 multiplied to the power the Hamming distance.
Right. So first, we have to make sure that we are picking x with the correct probability. So x is picked with probability 1 by 2 to the power n. And once we have picked that, what is the probability of picking y0? 1 plus rho by 2 to the power. What should be the
n
power
minus, n minus the Hamming distance.
of x?
X1 y0.
Hamming distance. Right? I'm just doing this small calculation so that you understand the probability distribution. Does that help? Now, are we clear about what probability distribution we are talking? Questions about this particular probability distribution? Again, the intuition was that you wanted to pick an x and you want to change it slightly. That means you want to perturb every bit with certain probability independent. This is what we have done. Should I move forward? Is the probability distribution okay?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else? Questions? Okay. If there are no questions, then tell me how should I define stability? What would be your guess?
So the expectation of f of x equals to f of y, where x comma y are picked from this particular probability distribution.
Very good.
Like a indicator variable.
Right, and again, I am not writing in the subscript. That means my distribution is this new distribution, not the uniform distribution, but the new distribution which I have defined at the top of this. Now, what I'm saying is that this quantity is actually related to this. This is what we saw in the case of fx times xi also. Right? This is just some linear transformation. 1 minus this expectation of the indicator variable will be the expectation of fx. So for the sake of having nice expressions, this is how we define stability. Sounds good. The above quantity was a very natural way to define it. It will be related to how we have defined the stability. The quantity which one of you mentioned was only 1 plus stability rho f by 2 or something like that. It is it is related to stability. So it doesn't matter. We can define, we pick fx times fy because we will get nice expressions. That's all. Okay. So is the definition clear? Questions about the definition? This is how we define the stability of the function, how stable the function is, and this is expectation of fx times fy, where the distribution is this special distribution which we designed in the previously. The definition of stability is clear. What would be our next step now, once we have defined the stability? Any guess?
Majority is the most stable function.
That's not, no. The most stable function is dictator, right? Or constant function,
Oh, right.
right? And yeah, so yeah, so that's not really true, but yeah, so but we will go into social choice theory slightly later in the next class. Today, we want to understand stability more. And whenever you want to understand a quantity more, what do we do? What did we do with influence?
We wrote it in terms of Fourier coefficients.
Exactly. Our next step is to come up with a Fourier analytic expression. I will just call it the Fourier expression for stability. And how are we going to do it? Can you think of a simple function whose stability you know?
Just a
Constant, right?
constant function.
Constant, yes. I just told you, right? For constant function, this is 1. But yeah, obviously you want a non-constant function. That would be not a good voting rule. So let's take the simplest functions, right? What we did for influence. Let's try to calculate the stability of. Let's try to calculate the stability of what? How did we come up with Fourier expression for influence? It's very, very similar.
Parity.
Yeah, let's try it for parity. Sorry, I should not say this. I should say stability rho of parity. Okay, let me be slightly more general than that. Let's say chi-sx. Chi-sx. Chi-sy. Okay, now what? How will you figure out this expectation? Let's take S to be 1, 2. Okay, simple case. Then this is the expectation of x1, x2, y1, y2. How can I calculate this expectation? The most important property of how should I say it? The most important probability of property of expectation is linearity of expectation. Is this going to help it here? Not really. X1, x2, y1, y2 are multiplied. So what is this other thing about expectation, which is very, very helpful?
First we fix x, then find the distribution of over y, the expectation to that.
No, you are not looking at expectation. You are trying to solve it as a summation of something.
Yes.
It's much easier if you think of it as an expectation. And now expectation of two random variables which are independent of each other.
Product of expectation.
Exactly. This is why so how can I split it?
x1, y1, and then
Correct.
x2, y2.
Very good. Because the first coordinate and second coordinate are entirely independent in our distribution. we can say that we pick the first coordinate independently and then change it with probability. And then we do it independently for every coordinate. That would be x comma. Now, what is expectation of x1 y? This you can calculate. If you have a pen and paper, let's go.
Half.
Remember, they are not uniformly distributed. What is the distribution we are talking about? We pick x uniformly and then flip it with probability 1 plus rho by 2.
No, we flip it with probability 1 minus rho by 2.
So, yeah, we flip it with probability 1 minus rho by 2. I'm sorry, yeah,
Yeah, and it remains same with probability 1 plus rho by 2. So,
correct.
so 1 plus rho by 2 minus, okay, it will be rho. Yeah.
Exactly. Do I need to explain this? Everyone is fine. This, as said, these will be same with probability 1 plus rho by 2. With probability 1 plus rho by 2, x1, y1 will be 1. With probability 1 minus rho by 2, the quantity x1, y1 will be minus. Right? This is the way we have defined x and y. We pick x uniformly and then change it with probability 1 minus. And this is, that means this quantity is
Rho to the power n.
wait, what?
Or rho to the power mod s.
Yeah, rho square in this case. But thank you for making my life easier. In general, if I want to find this out, this is rho of cardinal. Okay. And then stability of rho of f, just by applying linearity of expectation, will become fx. Is that correct? Everyone okay with this? Okay, should I? Yes, no, do I need to prove it now? It is done. Someone should tell me, okay, how many people are happy? They don't need the proof of this, they can do it themselves. Raise your hand.
Yeah, little bit of explanation.
Okay, what about others except Devanshu? Raise your hand if you can finish the proof of the thing which I have written. Okay. Okay, how many people cannot do it? Raise your hand if you cannot do this. Okay, I have to ask people how many are sleeping. Okay, Dvanit, Vatsal, can you do it? Can you not do it? You are not voting at all.
Yeah, I can think of somewhere to get somewhere.
So
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 we know that parity is a large function, and almost every function can be expressed
Mhm.
is a part of it. It's a part of parity. So
Oh.
for every coefficient of that, we can do that come in as we can do.
Yeah, so this was actually a trick question. What I wrote was
Do
completely
it, but yeah, I have a not believing whether it's correct or not.
Mhm, mhm. See, yeah, so my point was in the case of influence, things were easy. The way we did it, linearity of expectation was easy to apply. Here we have a multiplication of fx times f1. So we directly cannot apply linearity of expectation. Right? What will happen? When we multiply this, we will get summation over s f at s square chi sx times chi sx, which will cancel, plus, sorry, what did I do?
Chi is xy should.
Chi s x, chi s y.
Yeah. Chi sy. Chi sy. And then s comma t, where s is not equal to t, f at s, f at t, chi sx, chi ty. Right? If you just take the Fourier expression of f and you multiply, you will get this. Now we know this. What is this? But we don't have any idea about this. In next class, we are going to see this circled quantity and then come up with a Fourier analytic expression first. Okay. And once we come up with a Fourier analytic expression of stability, then we can prove the Arrow's theorem, the famous Arrow's theorem from social justice. Okay. This finishes the lecture today.